I think it's about that time. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Carroll from Manhattan Sports Communication Office, and I'm excited to welcome you all to today's installment of Coaches Conversation, where we will hear from three of our fall sport head coaches, volleyball's Lora Egbert, women's soccer's Brendan Lawler, and men's soccer's Jorden Scott. Before we get started, I'd like to remind you all to mute your microphones for this conversation, and all questions can be submitted through the chat function at the bottom of your screens. So now I'll turn it over to our host for this afternoon, Pac-12 Network and ESPN broadcaster, Greg Mescall. Greg, thank you for doing this today.
Kelly, thanks for having me. Jasper Nation, great to see everybody. Glad we can get together here even virtually. I hope everyone is doing well, feeling healthy, and thanks to our three coaches. We know fall sports are right around the corner, so we're excited to hear from them. And as Kelly mentioned, we want this to be collaborative. Please put your questions in the comments, in the chat here. We'll get to those. We have a lot of questions for the coaches, but this will be more fun as well if we're able to have some of your questions and thoughts as well. And as we kick things off, I want to get an opening statement and get a sense of how things are going with each of our three programs. And we'll start first with Brendan Lawler, the head coach women's soccer, heading into his 11th year this coming fall. You'll recall some of the great moments in the program's history over the last couple of years. Brendan was MAC Coach of the Year back in 2015. Coach, can you kick us off here? Just give us an opening statement and how things are going at the moment as you look ahead to fall 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It's great to see other coaches out there and former Jaspers and current Jaspers. We're coming off of 2 years that are really driving us into 2020. We were painfully close in 2018 and 2019. Soccer can be a cruel sport, obviously, and we would have been literally a handful of goals away both years. Last year, we were 1 minute and 12 seconds away from making the playoffs until a handball late. That's the kind of thing that drives us forward. So, we have about 9 starters returning for 2020, many of whom, almost all of whom, were on the team in 2017, the last time we made a final. So they were freshmen then, and they obviously want to finish their careers very strong. So, we're doing a lot more of these kind of things, a lot more of Zoom, trying to encourage people to get out. Luckily, things in most parts of the country are getting a lot better, so they're finding more space to get outside and train, and they're excited. We all finally get to, be outside and enjoy the weather a little bit more, and everything seems to be going in the right direction. Every committee I'm on, every call I'm on, we're all doing everything we possibly can to come in, and everything's pointing that way right now. So, fingers crossed for that, but we're very much looking forward to using that kind of how close we were as motivation to really have a great 2020 season.
Excellent stuff. Thanks, Brendan. We'll keep things on the pitch. We'll turn to men's soccer. Head coach Jorden Scott working on the start of his 8th season here in 2020. And like Brendan, a former MAC Coach of the Year back in 2013. Jorden, give us your update on how things are going so far.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, it's great to be here. Great to talk to everybody and answer as many questions as we can as we prepare as best we can for the fall. It's going to be an interesting fall. It's been an interesting 2020, to be honest, but we're all doing what we can to be ready and prepared. I think the last couple of years for our program has been exciting. We've had a lot of great moments, really highlight moments, and then maybe just came up a little short at the end. But the consistency within the program is something that we're proud of. You've obviously made tremendous strides off the field as well with facilities and the structure of the program, and we're excited about bringing in a lot of good young boys this year. We have about 13, 14 new players who are going to be bedding into a team. So there's a lot of unknowns right now, but it's an exciting time, and we just can't wait to get on the field in the fall.
Excellent. Thanks, Jorden. Now let's take it inside Dratty Gymnasium, if you will, for women's volleyball and head coach Lora Egbert. And Lora, coming off of last year, looking ahead to what comes this fall, just give us an update on how things are going with you and the team.
Yeah, well, first I want to say thank you all for being here today. And I want to say that, we've continued to strive for greatness every chance that we get, whether we're on the court or off the court. We had 2 Jaspers last season break into the all-time record book and top 10, both in blocks and digs per season, which was a great season for these rising seniors. We had a great class that came in this year, and we look forward to adding to our class this year.
Excellent stuff. Thanks, coaches, for those opening thoughts. And each of you looked back at some important moments that happened last season, things you were proud of. I know it's a weird time now with COVID impacting the ability for teams to get together and to practice and kind of connect. But as you look towards this fall 2020 season and what's ahead, Brendan, we'll start with you. What are some of the things you're really focused on, some of the things that you and the group are talking about to prepare for this next season?
So it's kind of the same thing we talk about, except it's heightened, right? Because we lost 6 weeks of the fall, or 6 weeks of the spring to really kind of bring everybody together. It's being able to hit the ground running, and as I said in the opening statement there, with so many returning players, with so much experience in the starters, but not only in just the starters returning, but freshmen who had years where they're ready to just take off, and everybody kind of moving up the ladder there. I think the biggest thing for us is to just be fit and healthy. It's going to be a tighter season. Everyone in the Northeast is going to be starting later and playing a few less games. So the more kind of preparation that our players can do, and now we're a little bit, I don't know, but I shouldn't say anything's lucky during this time period, but we are allowed to actually be working with the players in terms of team meetings and things like that more, so we can actually keep talking about that and keep that fresh. So we've been doing that as best as we can, and just really trying to lean on our senior leadership, which has, again, been really great. But senior captains Sydney Harwood and Brianna DeLeo have been, just on top of everybody else, making sure that we're not just talking about where we want to be, but putting in the actions to take those steps when they first get in.
Jorden, similar to you, team coming off of recent postseason appearance in the MAC tournament, I'm sure wanting to build off of that. What are some of the conversations that go on in these Zoom chats, and we get a chance to talk to your group building forward?
A great deal of excitement. I think with the group that just went out and graduated, they had been together for quite a bit of time. The last 2 years in particular, they were pretty solid in their approach. There wasn't many additions to that. But I think with the new, 13, 14 guys, as I mentioned, coming in, there's just this air of excitement. There's a lot of unknown. I remember in 2013 coming in as a head coach, and we had a lot of new players, and we made the semi-final that year when there was only a top 4 finish, and it was such an amazing year for us. But there was a lot of unknowns, just this excitement. There's a lack of understanding what your role is in the program, so you're out every day trying to prove yourself. So no one's really settled. So I think that's the feeling I get from the group. I know that a lot of the younger guys are out to prove themselves this summer. So we've been working behind the scenes. Myself, Edison, and Sean, my assistant coaches, have been working hard to provide these guys with as much information and a progressive plan to allow them to arrive back in as healthy as they possibly can be, so that we don't run into any major injuries and we can really get going positively from the start.
And then Lora, you look at your program and some key seniors coming back. Only one senior lost a year ago. That has to give you confidence, and the group confidence building towards this year.
Absolutely. This is one of the first seasons that we've really been mature and had a large upper class with 5 seniors coming back. This is the first recruiting class, at least partial recruiting class, that I had at Manhattan. They have bought in. They did a wonderful job of making sure that this program is shaped how they want it, and they want it better than when they left. And we're always improving. So we talk about holding each other accountable. They're still working together. They have their own discussions. We meet once a week as a team as well. We have several girls that are working. So with schedules and time differences, that once a week really works for us. And, they're hungry to get back on the court. They're just ready. And, they're making sure that they're bonded before we can battle come fall.
Excellent stuff. And we've got some great questions coming in. Keep those coming in the group chat. Before we get to some of those questions, Brendan, I want to turn it back to you. A big question that comes up in this COVID time period is the thought of getting ready to get back to play, and what does that look like? I know that you're part of a group working towards those efforts and figuring out how that looks. What are some of the things you can share that you've learned from that group?
Well, there's just so much going on and so many different types of approaches, right? So I was glad to, I was happy to be researching a lot of things and a lot of different ways that players were coming back. And we were talking before we started about the German soccer league, the Bundesliga, and Spain and England starting up soon. And So I was doing a lot of research on that, and I think what we're all willing to do is pretty much anything to come back in a safe manner. So if anybody has, watched German soccer on, on Fox Sports over the last few weeks, just how we're spreading out players in practice, how we're spreading out players in games, willing to just kind of do all the necessary things that we're willing to do, come back because we want to play, right? It was heartbreaking to see the players in the spring seasons, lose that season. And, we talk about new normal, right? All the buzzwords that get thrown around now. And I think we'll have these few weeks to practice in this new normal. But, I think if it means wearing a mask to practice and on the way out of practice, if it means, we all have our own water bottles with our names on it and we're not sharing a big Gatorade jug anymore, I think we're all willing to do that. We love the game. We love our teammates. We love the competition. And luckily, everybody seems to be wanting to pull in the same direction. And that's really what it takes. No one was, trying to throw roadblocks in like that. It was everybody answered the call and said, what do we have to do, down to every little detail. Do we got to wipe down our lockers that come in? We're going to wipe down our lockers that come in, whatever it takes.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Athletes around the country, they're excited to do what needs to be done to get back to playing the sports that they love. Some great questions coming in. We'll start first with one from Tom. And he asked about the Gaelic Park Athletic Center. We can kind of make that a bit broader about general facility upgrades. We know some work's been done at Dratty Gymnasium as well. Jorden, I'll start with you as it relates to Gaelic Park, just what those enhancements and improvements and new developments have meant to the soccer squads.
Yeah, I think for both of us, I know Brendan will get in on this, but 2010, I came as assistant coach, and I still remember those days of the dirt alongside underneath the train tracks. And, we never had things at the field that we have these days, air conditioning in the locker rooms and actual team benches, and just the smallest things that you take for granted sometimes when you go to some of these amazing schools, and things that we always wanted to provide for our student athletes to make them feel like they're as important as we treat them. And I think that has made a tremendous difference. Obviously, there's improvements into Dratty Gym, but I think the biggest change we had to our department in my time here was GPAC, was Gaelic Park Athletic Centre. I think it was huge for our school. I think it was huge for our department, even more so, in recent times with the steps forward some of our programs have made. Brendan's program has been to a final twice, and so everyone deserves to have their own locker, everyone deserves to have their own space, the best of equipment for athletic training staff, and even facility staff having their own office down there has just had a huge impact, and it couldn't have happened without our alumni. It really couldn't have done. I know our administration were a force to be reckoned with. Marianne and Tony and Will at the time was really behind it, but when you look back at Tim Doran, Sal Loria, Tom Lindgren, Brian Kenny, Larry Grassi, Bo Cassina, Louis Custodio, our entire committee that was behind the push from the 50th anniversary onwards, it's just going to change the landscape for all our Gaelic teams and our department as a whole. So, I was proud to be part of it. I was proud to offer any help I could at the time. And our student athletes have just absolutely loved every minute of it.
Yeah, the Gaelic Park Athletic Center opened in August 2019 for the teams in that area that use those facilities. Brendan, just circling back to you, I'm sure echoing a lot of what Jorden touched on, but what has that facility, that upgrade meant to you and your team?
Yeah, first of all, none of that happens without Jorden and the men's soccer alumni and the administration pulling it along every step, literally pulling it along every step, and continue to take those steps. So we'll forever be grateful to everything that they've done. But I think what it means to me, and it might seem odd to talk about a building this way, but it means relationships. So much what we do as a coaching staff and as a Manhattan College community as a whole is about relationships. And that building allows those relationships to happen so much easier. With obviously a locker room and the players coming in there together and a place to gather and a place to hang out, but also unwind, kind of leave the day behind them as they walk out to the soccer field, to our offices where we can sit down on a couch and watch film and just have normal conversations and have people pop in and out. There were times where, Brad, our associate head coach, and I would be sitting in Cafe 1853 trying to have a meeting with somebody, and literally a first date would break out next to us, So we would now to be able to come in and meet with anybody whenever, and really give them the kind of education and teaching and just relationship time that doesn't happen without that building. And it's so huge for us.
No, you're exactly right. That's been a huge advantage to so many members of the Jasper athletic community. Lora, we'll swing it back to you. With your competition and practice taking place in Draddy, what are some of the things that have gone on there that have been a benefit to your program?
Yeah, well, when I got here, I designed the volleyball court with our administration's guidance, and we have one of the only, I think it's one of two in our conference for volleyball only courts. So we're fortunate that we don't have to struggle for practice time. Our coaches are great, and we have a working relationship with the basketball coaches. So when we need court time, we get court time, which is phenomenal because I know not everybody in our league and across the country feels that same way. I'm super excited for the upgrades in the athletic training room that is in Alumni, which is connected to Draddy, for those of you that don't know. So there'll be comparable tubs and equipment for us to have. We took over more space, so it allows us to have, with COVID, it really allows, I think, a more possible operating system in the athletic training room, because they do have separate spaces that they could treat student athletes. And then they upgraded, made some upgrades in our weight room, which all of our student athletes will be able to reap those benefits of those upgrades.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, and this is the key to having resources and facilities. You're seeing, at least firsthand from these three coaches, what these extra facilities mean. They may not be the things that the fans take part in when they come to watch a game or a match, but they mean a ton to the athletes. So we appreciate all the support that's gone into to help making those renovations, those new experiences possible. We'll continue on with our questions here. In this COVID era, I think the topic of recruiting comes up a ton. You look at high school athletes around the country that have had their seasons derailed. You had seniors that didn't get to finish their season, depending on the state they're playing in. Seasons were cut short, recruiting periods were adjusted. This will be a question for all three coaches, and we'll stick with Lora on this to start. But how does all that's going on right now, and thanks to M. Cornett for this question, how does all that's going on right now kind of affect recruiting in this moment and then going forward as you look at future classes?
Well, I would say pretty significantly. We were in a dead period until President's Day. So from December until President's Day. So we only had a few weekends that we could actually get out in person and evaluate our student athletes that we were recruiting. So film has been more important than ever for us to be able to make sure that they're the right fit athletically, and then really using the time to spend to get to know these people that we are recruiting, because the kind of person that we bring into our program is instrumental in the success of our program and the dynamic of our teams. So really just spending more time getting to know the families, getting to know them personally, and doing a little bit more legwork with coaches and other references so that we make sure that we know exactly who we are bringing in. Culture is a really big thing. I think even as we look into the future, home visits used to be a thing, then they really weren't, and now they were coming back. And now we get that. I think we'll see that change again, where people aren't going into people's homes anymore, or at least for the time being. So I think recruiting from the short term has changed significantly. No flying or driving only, and the quiet period and dead periods being extended as we're trying to make our 2021, 2022, 2023 class. I'm finding that we're relying a lot on video and phone calls.
Jorden, we'll turn over to you, and your program, one that's not only evaluating athletes domestically, but internationally as well. How has this time affected your recruiting efforts?
Yeah, I think we should be thankful that we're in an era where we actually have access to some of the technology we have to be able to assess. Imagine doing this 20 years ago when we never had the capability, or, high pods at the field where we could video games and be on chats with people on FaceTime just straight off your phone. I mean, I remember coming to the country 2003 when I was using a phone card just to call home. So I'm pretty thankful that we have the technology we have. I think we're all a lot more comfortable using, even this feature, Zoom, or getting on your phone and using different apps to connect with kids these days. I think it's been great. I've really actually enjoyed being able to sit down and get on a call, or get on a video call with parents or a kid who's available. For our international guys, it's the same thing. It's exactly the same. We treat them all the same. Normally we do 2 or 3 trips a year to Europe or whatever to try and find a kid. And we, instead of doing that this year, we're just doing it on video. And to be honest with you, it's probably been better because we've actually been able to gain 3 or 4 different levels of games versus just seeing a kid once. So that's been helpful. We're still recruiting for this fall. I'm sure everyone who knows me will probably smirk and laugh at that. Brendan's in 2030 right now, I think, and I'm still in 2020. So, we're still looking for players. We're trying to assess the best options, but we've seen so many kids. We've done our homework. My staff have been absolutely unbelievable for the past year, especially in the recruitment efforts. So we feel great about where we're at, and the administration and school are really supporting us and trying to bring some of these kids in. It's been great, and it's another exciting fall.
Thanks, Jorden. And as we're talking about recruiting, also thanks to Kathy Reckling for a question as well as it pertains to inventing new ways or figuring out new tools in recruiting. And so Brendan will kind of keep on this recruiting topic as you've had to adjust here. Have you had to kind of huddle with your staff and, think about, well, how can I get an edge here? What can I do differently in this situation where I can't go out and just see someone in person or go to a tournament or those sorts of things?
Yeah, I mean, you absolutely have to, right? I think if there's something to be learned from playing sports that go out into the bigger world, is that you have to change, right? Change is the one constant. You're going to have to, obviously in soccer, right, we might change formations, might ask players to change positions, adjust to the game in a different way, and hopefully those are skills that they take away from the field into their jobs and their careers, obviously. So yeah, 100% we've had to adapt, and like everybody else said, film is a big part of it. But I think we're probably taking more time to just have regular conversations because there's not as much soccer to talk about, So I know being a former teacher, I'm very interested in how everybody's high school life is going right now and how their teachers are adapting and maybe even stealing a few ideas from them and just kind of having a more personal conversation to get to know people. But I think I'm constantly been looking for silver linings, since March the 10th or whenever it was we went home. And I think one of them will be in women's soccer. Recruiting was way too advanced, as Jorden made the joke before about being on 20-30 classes. When 8th graders are committing to college, so they're picking their college before they've entered high school, that's probably not the best environment for everyone to be choosing from. So it's forced everyone to slow down, and I think that's a good thing, to be honest. So we've all been able to kind of pump the brakes a little bit, let high school kids be high school players and kind of mature and develop before they have to make that decision. So it's been nicer to just kind of take a step back, get to know the players, as Jorden said, get to know their families, and we can all kind of relax. I mean, we're speaking with a player right now, a junior who's about to be a senior from Southern California, from up in Canada, and from locally, and a few of them need to see campus. So they might actually be seniors by the time they pick out college. Then there's nothing wrong with that.
If you're just joining us, just popping on the Zoom here, we're talking with our head coaches for the Manhattan College Jaspers for men's and women's soccer, women's volleyball. Appreciate everyone chiming in, adding your questions. More to come here in the chat. One question that came through from Bo, and Jorden, you were just talking about international athletes, so I'll pose this one to you. Lots of travel restrictions depending on which countries athletes are coming from, and I'm sure whatever applies to your team will apply to any team in Manhattan College. But how is your squad dealing with any potential travel issues, whether it pertains to recruiting, having players re-enter to rejoin the team, those sorts of things?
Yeah, I think the first few weeks was complete panic from guys going home and not knowing if they could return. That was a decision that a 20-year-old has to make. It's crazy. So we had a few guys stay, and then everyone went home eventually. And we have some new guys coming in from overseas, and we're just working with them. We're trying to stay on track. I think the most important thing is just to be calm. I don't think there's anything that we can panic about. There's nothing we can change. Decisions are being made way above my head that will trickle down into where we're at, and it'll be the same for everybody. So, I'm not the only program out there with international players in our conference, especially in men's soccer. There's a lot, and everyone's going to have an impact. It's just how it's going to be, and we're going to do our best to make sure that we support our student athletes throughout the summer and give them specific advice on when things are concrete rather than hypotheticals and maybes and ifs and buts. Like, that's just going to cause confusion. So we just need to be clear on our message. We need to make sure that the guys have the information at hand when we have it, and then they'll make the right decision. But there's nothing we can do. Embassies are closed. They're taking some appointments in some countries and not in others, and we're just going to hold tight, and we're going to wait for government officials to give us the all clear at the school, and then once that happens, we'll get the guys on planes.
As we're talking about this topic of the impact that COVID is having on all these teams and programs around the country, Arsen Vanian also raises the question about games being played, and that kind of dovetails into scheduling. And so we'll pose it to each of the coaches here. And Laura, we can start with you. Does what's going on now limit the number of games you can play this fall? Has it adjusted your schedule at all? And then has it posed any challenges in scheduling, say, 2021 and going forward from there?
I feel like scheduling is always a moving wheel, and you're always scheduling, even when you think your schedule is done. So the amount of emails that has been tossed around between the Division I coaches is unreal. I probably get 5 a day, if not more, of trying to figure out how to fill tournaments. We're staying a little bit more local for our tournaments, which typically we go away for one of our preseason tournaments. So we're going to stay regional, so that way we can just be safer. We can control our environment that we're in. So it definitely changes our preseason. Does it limit the number of games? Possibly, depending on exactly when our start date is. So if that is, then we'll just adjust. Like I said, most of the teams we're playing are all regional, so it won't be difficult to make that adjustment. I think we're all in the same boat, and we're all being as flexible as we can, and understanding with the situation that we're in. So we're just doing the best that we can with the cards that we're dealt. And, as of right now, volleyball is still playing our conference tournament in Disney. And, we'll adapt with what we need to.
Jorden, similar question, and whether it's preseason competition, I know teams get the opportunity every now and again to do international travel as a group. You're scheduled for this fall, your schedule moving forward. What have been the impacts?
Yeah, I think like Laura, I think things that, especially, I actually said this morning to Catherine on the phone, that the last 48 hours have been insanity. There seems to, maybe someone knows something I don't, but there's been games, floating teams looking for games, changing schedules. There's really nothing we can do right now. I mean, I think we just hold tight, we hold firm, and then we see where we're at once we clear things up and we have access. There's really not much you can do. There are certainly going to be games that we're guaranteed to return to, or they were guaranteed to return to us, that we're going to maybe have to adjust for 21. But a lot of our games, I mean, we normally play local games anyway. There's just such tremendous competition in the tri-state. There's really no need for us to get on a plane when we can go play Columbia, St. John's, where there's enough talent here to challenge us and prepare us for the MAC. And that's always going to be the case for us. So, yeah, I don't see us changing too much. We might have to limit some of the stuff we do. But again, we'll just pick that up in 21 and we'll keep moving forward. Again, like Brendan said, we're just thankful that we're going to be able to play, hopefully, in the fall. I think that's the thing we're holding on to right now, and giving our seniors especially a chance to really just go out on a high.
Brendan, I'm sure you have some similar thoughts as the other coaches do, given the uncertainty. So I'll rephrase a bit and I guess ask what you're sharing with some of your athletes. I'm sure they have some uncertainty about, hey, are we going to get to do this schedule the way we thought it was? What are some of the things that you're able to tell them as best you can, and what is certainly an uncertain time?
Yeah, so I mean, communication is always vital, right? So we're talking to our captains on a regular basis, and we're meeting with our teams weekly. And I think that it comes down to the fact that we all want a chance to compete for a conference championship, and that's where our focus always is. And the line there can be so tight, and between, first, second place and 7th or 8th place, between not getting in the playoffs and hosting a playoff game. So that remains where our focus is, and that's where I'm trying to help our players stay focused on that. In a lot of ways, our non-conference schedule is all preseason. If you follow that analogy, where everything is getting ready for conference play. So, I don't think I'm talking out of turn when I say the state of Connecticut has, said nobody is allowed back on campus until the 24th. So we'll probably have a few less games, and that's okay, because like I said, we all wanted to come back and play conference and compete with our rivals and, get at Iona and try and take down Monmouth. And, as best as we can. We have a lot of good local rivalries in this conference, and it's incredibly competitive. I know even more so on the men's side. So that's what we're focused on.
Excellent stuff. And given these uncertain times, all we can do is hope that things are able to get back on track here and games are able to get played, matches scheduled as we get towards the fall. Don't forget, you can add your comments, questions in our chat feature here. We're working through those as we go. Switching gears here, over the last couple of weeks, we're all well aware social justice issues have been the main focus on the news. Athletics have taken a big role in this. You've seen athletes offering their thoughts, teams, colleges, universities, pro franchises offering their statements as well. I know, coaches, all three of you have had these conversations about the importance of these issues with your teams. Just curious to get a little insight into what those conversations have looked like. Again, we know it's remote talk. This is probably one of those times where everyone would love to get together and have an in-person conversation, but we know that's not the way things are able to go at the moment. Lora, we'll start with you. What have you been sharing with your team, and how have those conversations gone with your group?
The conversations with my team have been very positive. We've all been on the same page. We are all in support. We have had some raw discussions and just open, and knowing that, everybody has a different background and comes from different areas of the country. And that the biggest thing for us and the takeaway that we're taking as a team is making sure that we're educated. And educated in a lot of different ways. So I sent some material, they've sent material, they've used their social media platforms. So, our conversation has been very open. It's been very positive. We shared the same comments of President O'Donnell, Marianne, and the stance that Manhattan College has, and everyone was in support of that. It's something that we just have to continue to make sure that we're educated and that we can take steps forward as a team, but also individually.
Thanks for that, Lora. And if you follow Manhattan College Jaspers, or you're a Jasper alum, you know the importance of the LaSallian mission and where social justice is a part of those values. And Jorden, we'll send it over to you. And a similar question in how you've addressed this with your team and what the response has been from your group.
Yeah, we had a team meeting scheduled actually at the time, and obviously things became very very public and really blew up, and rightfully so. There's a lot to be said about our school community, and I know you touched on the mission and the values, but when you look at the way we live our daily life on campus, it is surrounded by those values. So having respect for each other, being able to be integrated, and there's tremendous amount of inclusion. If you look at my roster over the years, you see people from so many different backgrounds, and I truly believe in that. It's one of the reasons why I chose to come to this country and to live in this area, was to be surrounded by diversity and learn from everybody and bring my part as well. But I think as long as I said to my team, as long as we live by the values that the school lives by, we treat everybody fairly, and as Lora mentioned, we continue to educate those who may struggle with this a little bit to be better, to think about the other side, and at times and really push forward, we can just create a better environment, everywhere, all over the world. The one thing I would say is that, I've had alumni as well in my program who went on to work for the NYPD and currently do, who were part of the LaSallian mission and speak every day by those values. So I think it really impacted everybody. And as we continue to fight equality, and I know we all believe in that, I think we just have to look at the values that the school live by and follow them.
And then Brendan, what has it looked like with your group as you've talked about these key social justice issues?
So I used to be a social studies teacher, and so I kind of went back into teacher mode. I shared got everybody a copy of Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail, and we discussed the topics that he brings in there, and obviously how we're still fighting those today. But just talk about a team culture of how standing up and doing the right thing, and goes beyond soccer, and again takes you into the real world. The biggest thing for me, once I kind of laid all that out for the team, was for them to kind of take ownership of our next action steps. So what are we going to do besides tweeting support or something along those lines? So I kind of turned that over to them, give them a few days to think about it, and how can I then support those steps. So they came up with ideas of raising money for causes, and they're all championing that. I think there was a great idea from Lexi Chapman on our team about creating a Athletes for Change group on campus, and the next morning we were on the phone trying to figure out how to create that group and take those steps. I'm very proud to be just in this sport, right? The sport of soccer is obviously global. Globalization has brought about different cultures to every single team. All you have to do is turn on the English Premiership in a week, and you'll see every continent and every color on the field at the same time. And soccer hasn't always had the best record when it comes to racism, but I think that's what happens when you open yourself up, right? You have to have difficult conversations, and people are exposed to new things. And what really takes is a personal education and a community education, and what are the steps you're going to take. So I'm looking forward to supporting our players in the actions that they wanted to take, and continue those for more than the next month, and the next year, and make it a kind of permanent thing that we do and what we're about.
Really good stuff there from all three. Thanks for that. And kind of to tag along to that thought, you've all talked about the importance of relationships and about the culture that your teams have created. I would imagine that you don't get to have a purposeful, meaningful talk like you all just described without having built strong relationships amongst your team and developing a positive culture. Laura, I'll swing it back to you, but just in general, what sort of culture goes on in your locker room? How has your team built relationships that allows you to tackle tough conversations like this, but also a tough loss, getting ready for a big game, all the things that a team has to do together?
Yeah, so I always encourage open communication and asking the question of why if you don't understand something. So just making sure that, there's always a process in our minds. And if we don't know the reason why we're doing something, oftentimes we might question it. So making sure that they have that open door policy, that they feel comfortable, that they can ask, whether it's one-on-one or in front of the team. After a tough loss, we discuss what could we control that we could have done better. And we put it out there, and it is hard, and it's sometimes hard to hear it, but it makes you grow. Because if you just ignore it, the change never happens. So, and that's on the court and off the court. So for us, it's just about always being open, always being raw. Show your emotion. It's fine if you are, hanging your head after a loss or after a bad, test grade. It's okay, but you don't get to do that for the next 48, 72 hours. You get to do it for a short amount of time and really take that amount of time to be able to live in that moment and just kind of feel that disappointment. And then it's time to move on, close that chapter and move on. And I think that's part of keeping a healthy mind frame for being a student athlete and having so many different challenges every single day.
Jorden, you talked about the makeup of your roster, not just this year, but in years gone past in your time at Manhattan College. And they're from all over the world, all over the country. You need to bring this group together, get everyone on the same page. And then you talked about some of the conversations you're able to have. What have been the steps to help this group gel together so that when you do face adversity or tough moments or times where the group needs to come together, they're able to do it?
Yeah, I think, the word culture gets used an awful lot these days. I think that it's a symptom of the environment that you're in. And I think Brendan hit on it earlier about GPAC and the impact it has had in such a short period of time. I think our strength is Gaelic sports will continue to get better over the years as we use the facility better, as we learn how to adapt and the relationships have become stronger. Accessibility for our players to our coaches, and accessibility for players to players. We had guys that used to come to the field, practice, and then leave, and they'd never see each other until 12 hours later. Now they actually get to hang out, play the same music, have a similar conversation. And that environment, that Gaelic Park environment, actually brings out conversation that leads to players understanding that there's a lot of common elements no matter where you're from in the world, right? So whether it be, listening to Drake music or whatever they listen to these days, it's long gone. Beatles are long gone now for me, but, going back into, having conversations about their upbringing, or, homes where maybe they're just single mothers, or, maybe they used to go to a school that had huge classrooms, and they struggled with that, or guys who are doing the same class and they're struggling with a professor. And so there's just so many common elements that these guys actually find out where they're from, but that's built on the environment they're in. That conversation never used to happen for our program. And so obviously COVID hit us in March. We were halfway through the spring and just played our first spring game. But I'm excited about seeing how that facility allows us as a staff to elevate the opportunities for us to really bring them together, to find those common elements, to grow together, to learn together. And that will make our teams better on the field, absolutely guaranteed. So, I think back to Brendan's point, relationships and the environment are key.
And then Jorden, another key question: do you have a favorite Drake song?
Yeah, honestly, I just know the word. I don't even know who the guy is. It's probably a guy, right? I have no idea. Maybe Brendan's got it on in his office. I hear him playing music every day in there. I don't know what that is he's playing.
He's a big Raptors fan, Jorden. He's a big Raptors.
Oh, yeah. All right. Okay.
We'll have to get some Drake lyrics and some MP3 files over to you very soon. Brendan, you had mentioned your time as a teacher in addition to being a coach. I think if you've been in a classroom, you've been in front of a team, you know the ones that are bought in and they're really into what the teacher is saying and they're into what the class is working on, and then likewise a team that is split apart or one that is unified. You were describing your group very, very close-knit. How did that happen? How do you build a group like that so that everyone bands together and they're ready to do things to make their campus a better place? They're ready to try and raise funds and have a positive impact.
I think you're being very nice to me. Not that I shouldn't just take that and run with it, but if I knew exactly what would work every time, I would have written the book and I might be retired already. But that being said, I just think, one of the biggest things I learned after 2015, when we made a final, and it was that senior class was my first fully developed recruiting class. And first time and maybe even only times I shed tears when they graduated in our meetings. But I thought our culture had arrived. Okay, now this is our culture, it's set, and I can start, focusing on other things. And a quarter of your team graduates and a new quarter comes in. So if I've learned anything, it's that you're never there. The culture is never set. You're constantly trying to reinforce it. But the biggest way to try and to do that is to have the players doing it, is to get the key players and the ones that have the biggest influence on other people positively, because we can all influence in negative ways as well, but the biggest positive influence to increase their circle, right? Because sometimes people who could have the most positive influence might be quiet. They might not push themselves out there, but to try and get them to be a little bit more uncomfortable in who they are, to try and widen their circle of influence. I think there's no way one coach by himself is not going to do that, no matter what kind of cult of personality they have. They need their players. And then the coach has to work in what are their values? What do they need? It has to be about the group. And so sometimes it's always a little bit in change. And, it's far from perfect all the time, but you're just constantly plugging away at it.
We're talking a bit about some of the foundational elements of your program as it pertains to building relationships. How do you get your group to kind of gel and go in the same direction? This COVID time period, I think it's given all of us a chance to reflect. You really have to kind of press the pause button on things, especially for college coaches. You're in a constant state of movement, right? You're either in the season, you're getting ready for the next season, you're recruiting. There's always something going on. Not that those things have stopped, but this has given a lot of us a chance to just kind of reassess and maybe reflect a little bit. Lora, we'll circle back to you, and I'm just curious, in this sort of pause time, you've had now a few seasons under your belt here with the Manhattan Jaspers. Has this given you a chance to kind of think back on where you've been, where you want to go, reassess your goals moving forward? How have you kind of used this brief pause to think about your time as the Jasper head coach of women's volleyball and where you want to take it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think reflect is something that we hear a lot, and Marianne says it a lot. We never reflect enough. And in this time of pause, it is really important to reflect not only on you, but those around you. And it's been a time that has been nice for me to be able to connect and reconnect with some of our student athletes away from volleyball. So what are you doing with this? What are you doing with that? And because volleyball isn't there. So I think relationships are only going to grow stronger during this time. And I think relationships are the backbone to success on the court, because if you don't trust someone off the court, you're not going to trust them on the court. So I think being able to just continue to build trust and just get to know each other on a different level, and allow them to know me a little bit better from a personal side as well. I think, always giving back to the community is a really big thing that I preach to our team. And we had Abby Wild donated N95 masks to her community because her mom is a local dentist. Ren Hoffman was driving and delivering groceries. I reached out to friends that can sew because I definitely cannot, and have actually donated over 500 masks. So I just think it's really important during this time to reflect on something that's bigger and what we can do off the court to bond us on the court. So, I use that not only in my personal life, but also with our team. And I think as we reflect, we not only reflect individually on our team, but we also do it as a team each week. And we make those reflections of what is our passion? Where are our goals? Where do we want to head next? What is in our lives this next week that we can have direct impact for our future? Not only for the now, but for the long term. And I think that's something that I never had the time or never really thought about it before, or had it slow enough where we just weren't on the go to be able to have some of these conversations and be able to reflect not only with myself, but with my team, both everybody and individually. And I think that's all going to be positive as we move into the next year and the next and the next. And another thing I've been doing is connecting with alumni. I've been solo majority of the time that I've been at Manhattan, so I haven't had a lot of time to connect with alumni. So I've been able to have several happy hours with them and Zoom calls and be able to connect with them and hear their stories, allow them to hear mine. And we've planned an event for spring. The date is to be determined in the future.
That's excellent stuff. Jorden, Lora touched on a lot of important things, right? Connecting with alumni, connecting with athletes that are currently on the team in a little bit more of a one-on-one manner. You now moving into year 8, you can really look back at some work that you've put in and kind of the legacy you've helped build for this program and what you want to do moving forward. What are some of the things that you've been kind of thinking back on and thinking and looking forward to in this town time?
Yeah, I think 2 things. I think the first thing is how thankful we should be for everything we have. Sometimes I think we go so fast paced in the job that we actually don't get a chance to look back enough. We're always on to the next thing. I talk about that a lot. I did that in an interview with the MAC recently where I spoke about how if you win something on a Tuesday, you wake up on a Wednesday and you have to go again. And I think being able to take the time to be thankful for the people that have supported us, to be thankful for the job we do, to be thankful for the support we get from the school and administration, and also to be really thankful for the relationships we have. It's amazing in a time like this, the number of people that reach out to you and just to check in. And, even you talk about previous players, our alumni, our friends, our family, people that maybe we've never spoken to in weeks or months that maybe you check in with on a WhatsApp message now and again. You actually get a chance to call them and video chat. And it's amazing. I actually did a call recently with about 15 friends that I'm really close with, but we haven't spoken in so long. We did a Zoom chat from all over the world. the guys living in like 3 different continents, and you never got a chance to do that because you're just so busy, trying to move everything forward. I think relationships have got stronger. I'm really happy to see some of our alumni on here, but I speak to alumni every week. I have been for a long time. I think that that's the reason why we do this job. It's the reason why we're so proud of our program, is because we want to make them proud of what they built, what they helped make, almost move us into a new area with men's soccer. And, I'm excited about the future, a new group coming in, our alumni behind us, a new facility. I can't wait. I can't wait to get back on the field in August. We're doing everything we can right now to be ready, but I can't wait for that first game at Gaelic Park. I'm going to have to be on no coffee that day. I'm going to have to slow down a little bit because I will be bouncing that day. I can't wait.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to that. Brendan, similar question to you, and now working on year 11, the Manhattan College women's soccer program has been a huge part of your life. This gives you a chance to kind of pause for a moment in this time of reflection as you think back on where you've been and where you're going. Why is this still something you love to do? Why are you still excited for that very next game you get a chance to coach?
So I think it was yesterday. Kristen Skanetsky, who graduated in 2016, was our goalkeeper and goalkeeper of the year in 2015. Just shot me a text because she needed an update on her resume because she's about to start her med school residency. It's those kind of things that I would have told you in 2010, 2011, I probably never would have thought about being 29 years old and getting the chance to coach a Division I program. It's just all about soccer, and I got to prove myself. And now, like I said, going to the 11th year, it's amazing to see 30, 40 alumni come back to our games and their kids, who some of them are older than my kid. That's what it becomes about. And to hear when they graduate, the things that, I'll take the acronym SMART goal, which we've probably all heard about. The number of people who went on internships to their first career job and got back to me right away and said, hey, they made us do SMART goals too. And they were amazed that we knew what they were and that we could do them. So it's as much as I love the game and so much is planned around, when they're making an overlapping run and how to deliver a bent ball. Like, at the end of the day, you look back at people who are doing amazing things and hoping that you had some sort of positive influence on that, or at the very least didn't get in their way.
Excellent stuff, guys. Just a few more minutes here. Going to try and get in a couple of the other questions that have come in here from the chat. If you have any other last-minute questions, feel free to drop them in to the group chat here. Lora, I believe you noted that Kathleen Reckling was your first volleyball coach. Did I see you write that in the comments? So yeah. I'm going to send this question over to you. That's such a cool connection for you two. I guess just real quick, what's a favorite memory of playing for Kathy?
Oh, well, I started in middle school. So middle school in Nebraska is 7th and 8th grade. I know it's a little bit different depending on where you're at. But I started playing and I was tall. I've been like 5'9" since I was in middle school. I was always one of the tallest, and then I just stopped growing. And so I was a middle, and she made me run a 1, which is a fast tempo set. And I had never really watched volleyball. My mom made me play. I didn't necessarily want to play, but she's like, no, you need to. So I was like, okay. So I go in my basketball shorts and my basketball shoes, and I'm playing volleyball. And she's like, this is what you're going to do. And I'm just watch. And I tried and missed about probably 100 times. And the 101th time I got it. And I was like, oh, great, I can do this. And she was always just very encouraging throughout my playing career and my coaching career.
That's fantastic. And Kathy, thanks for joining us here as well. Appreciate it. Good to see you two connect again. And I'll lead into one of Kathy's questions here. For you, Lora, do your players have the opportunity to formally assess the program? Do you have individual goal setting or exit interviews each year?
Yes, we do meetings each semester, actually. So when they come in the beginning of the year, we'll have a team meeting and we hit the court a little bit to knock off some rust and so that they can see the players around them. And then we do some individual goals a couple weeks into our, like a week and a half into our preseason typically. And we always reassess our goals in the middle of the year as well, just because sometimes we set really high goals or maybe we already surpassed that goal. So we need to reassess our goals. So we definitely do that. And then at the end of each year, we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and what we can change to make it better. Because in the end, it's all about the experience for our student athletes. and giving them the best opportunity to enjoy every moment that they have in the sport.
Excellent. And now we'll turn to a question from Bo. And since Brendan, you're the elder statesman on this group of coaches here, I'll send this one your way. Bo asks, the coaches appear to have a great relationship with each other. Do you bounce ideas off of each other to handle difficult issues, situations? And Brendan, feel free to expand if that includes other coaches that aren't joining us here today.
Yeah, I mean, so it goes back, let's talk about relationships in GPAC again, right? So I can't say that Laura and I discuss what setters should be doing very often, but when we do see each other, it's a lot, because a lot of the things are common, right? Culture and player meetings and how you handle this and how you handle that, like that comes up all the time. Jordan and I, our offices are right next to each other. We came in at the same time. I think we're the same age as well. So, we're talking about soccer all the time. We've gone to coaching courses together. So Jordan and I's soccer relationship, I shouldn't just say soccer relationship. I actually like it as well. So 100% out of that, I say, and my associate head coach is fantastic. Brad Bolton is salt of the earth and does amazing work for us. But at the same time, once you're the head coach, it sometimes can be a lonely spot to go find somebody else. So Drew Kelleher, our men's lacrosse coach, Tom Pardalis, office right next to us, and Tom got lots of experience in different schools as well. If you're not learning anymore, you're getting passed by other people. So and a lot of times a different experience from a different sport, or not even a sport, just a different industry, can be a big help to shine a light on how you might be going about things. So our coaching fraternity at Manhattan College and sorority is we're all there for each other as much as we can be, whether we're up on the hill in Dratty or down at GPAC.
That's excellent. And we'll just close out with Jordan, and I'll ask you just about what this Manhattan Jasper community means to you and means to the teams. And you've touched on it a bit. I was thinking back to that epic win you guys had a couple of years ago against Fordham in double overtime, and how excited everyone was to cheer on the team when that ball hit the back of the net. Moments like that, other moments of experience, the folks that are joining this call right now, what does the support of this Manhattan Jasper faithful, as we call them, mean to you and the rest of the athletics department?
Yeah, I think getting the alumni back is really helped our program on so many levels. I think there's nothing better than alumni, alumni day, when everybody comes back and we see everybody in the stand. It's no coincidence that every time we play an alumni day, we've had wins, because our players give that extra 10%. We get a little bit more noise from the stand, and the boys really push on. The coaches are a little bit more, up for it on the day, a little more charged up, and that can be reflected in our performance. But I think it's it's fair to say that when a student body turns out for games, the student athletes perform better. We do. It's just like going to the gym. If you go on your own, you probably do 10 minutes and quit at the 8-minute mark and be done with it. If you go with a friend, you're probably going to do 12 minutes because you just want to beat the guy. So, the more people that are with you along the way, the harder you're going to work, the more motivated you're going to be. And, we're a tight group. We all are, staff, players, the department. We're pretty tight with each other. But when other people outside the circle come to support us, and there's a few people on this call, actually I see Carla on the call right now, and I was just thinking about having a conversation with her about our kids, last year and how they play youth soccer, and knowing that those people from the school are willing to show up and support you just allows you to be a little bit more motivated. So, someone said that to me, what are you looking forward to the most? And I said, I can't wait just to walk up that hill. And the hill from Gaelic to Drady is a miserable walk, but I can't wait to get back and do that miserable walk again, so I can say hi to everybody and check in and see if they're safe and healthy and happy. And, I just, that ability just to see everybody, or the opportunity to see everybody, is the thing that's keeping me going. And, again, I just can't wait to get back on campus.
Perfect sentiments to end this talk, and I think you're spot on, and everyone would agree with you that we are excited to do that walk again and excited to get back on campus and cheer on our Manhattan College Jaspers. To our coaches here for joining us, Jorden Scott, men's soccer, Brendan Lawler, women's soccer, Lora Egbert, women's volleyball. Thanks so much to the Jasper faithful. Thank you for joining us as well, and I'll pass it back over to Kelly.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you to our coaches. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this conversation. If you'd like to continue to engage with our coaches and teams, you can follow them on both Twitter and Instagram. Volleyball team is at Jaspers VB. Men's soccer is at Jasper Soccer, and women's soccer is at Jaspers WSOC. We would love to also see you all back here next week when we continue coaches' conversations with a focus on the transition from assistant coach to head coach, with women's lacrosse's Jenna Dingler and Jillian May, and men's lacrosse's John